Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Okay, I didn't bring out the bagpipes, but this is still... Oh my god.
Yeah, I do have visual exhibits to bring. If we want to talk about the cover this episode, we can do it another episode.
No, I'd love to. This is a momentous occasion. We're embarking upon the final season of Everybody Hates Rand, a Wheel of Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw.
And I'm Sally
We're
Gutcher.
going to start the season by completely disrupting the usual proceedings. And the last book of Wheelie Time.
Yeah.
So, find the reading schedule online if you're inclined to follow along. It's a little weird this time around because one of the chapters in this book is like 200 pages long. So we had to split that up a little bit. But overall, it's the usual two or three chapters.
Look, I went right to it.
Yeah, it's right there, smack in the middle almost. How'd you find that so fast?
My mother always claims our family's a little psychic, so maybe it was...
Not what I was expecting.
Sorry, I'm feeling a little silly.
We gotta feel a little silly. You gotta feel a little silly when you talk about Wheelie Time.
Yeah, the final book and the final season, a little sad, but I'm sure I will feel less sad once I get into more of what Brandon has done.
Sure. Yeah, I think our focus this season, I'm hoping, will be, we're talking about the ending, and so we're going to be talking thematically a lot about what makes a successful wrap-up to a narrative, what makes a successful character arc completion, what makes a successful series as a whole that ends well, while still, I hope, trying to celebrate the fact that ending any series, especially one as long as this one, is a momentous achievement for both Brando and Robert. As we've said many times, Brandon had an unenviable task and probably did his best. And for that, we thank you, Brandon.
No, I was thinking again, we'll get into it, but when I was reading Talmanes, Talmain, or whatever you guys call him.
Shut up. He's not that French.
Not in this fucking chapter, he's not. He uses the word peasants once, and that's the most we get out of him.
I know, I was like, how dare you?
How dare you make him? Anyway, he just reads very out of character, and I can't remember if we ever had a Talmanese point of view from Robert Jordan, or if it was Brandon picking up that torch and doing his best to figure out what that man's internal life is like. But I was like, this is not hitting Brandon. And then I was struck all again about how difficult it would be to pick up somebody else's characters and try to make them move on the page in anything like the similar way to the original author. So I agree that he did his best. Yeah.
We must talk about the cover. And to talk about the cover, we first bid a fond farewell to Darrell K. Sweets.
I know, who also beefed it before this book came out.
And I want you guys to know that when we talked about Darrell K. Sweet in the past, I fully thought he was still alive.
And they just got rid of him for book 14.
No, I forgot he didn't do this one. So I was fully operating in a world where the things I was saying on the internet about that man's work were accessible to him. And that's the kind of gumption I have.
Sure.
/ the lack of foresight
Yeah, Darrell K. Sweet, may he rest in peace, passed before A Memory of Light was published. However, he did start the Memory of Light cover art.
He got a draft, and it is available online.
On the internet, you can find it. One of our dear patrons sent it to us, which made me laugh so hard when I first saw
vaguely
it.
remember seeing this in the past and being like, hey, what?
You can also find it on Dragon Mount. Even if you just search A Memory of Light cover art on Google, it was like one of the first things that popped up. It is so funny. You look at it and you're like, this is giving Midsommar.
Yeah, it really is. I haven't even seen Midsommar, but I know that that's giving Midsommar.
It's 3 women.
Presumably Elaine, Avienda, and Min.
Yeah.
We are evoking Min's oft-cited vision of the 3 women gathering around Rand's bier. Is it bier or beer?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know.
You know, his little burial shroud where they stick a body in olden times before they had mortuaries. Beer. It's beer. I knew that.
You're so smart, Emily.
Anyway, except he is prepared for what seems to be a Tibetan sky burial. He's on like the top of this very large rock, all wrapped up. And in the background, there's like this cloud formation that's yin and yang, you know, like the Aes Sedai of olden times. And the women are all wearing long white dresses, and they have loose hair.
Yeah.
They're all gazing up at it, the body, that is.
Yeah.
There also seems to be, like, bones on the battlefield around them.
There's, like, just, like, helmets and swords, and that could be a skeleton back there.
Yeah, so that's about... Now, this cover is about as connected to reality as most of Darrell K. Sweet's covers have been, which is to say, minimally.
And that's what I love about Darrell K. Sweet. If there's one thing the man has, it's panache.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. where he will take a prompt and be like, I'm absolutely not doing that, and run in an opposite direction.
And just be like, look at this haunting... It looks like a mummy, you know, it's a wrapped body.
Sure.
There's no way to not make it look like that.
Yeah, Imhotep might pop out of that at any moment.
You're like, okay, this is... On what appears to be a 12 to 20 foot tall random rock formation in the middle of this empty field.
You have to assume that it was there originally, either that or the 3 women laboriously.
Yeah.
Since there's no one else on this cover, they must have just rolled those rocks over.
Yeah, Avienda used all of her Wise One training to stack a bunch of rocks.
She doesn't, that bitch doesn't know how to stack rocks.
Anyway, what I love so much about this is that Darrell K. Sweet was like, I need to make a cover to end one of the biggest fantasy franchises of all time. What I will do is put a mummy
front and center.
That
would have been directly below the cover. A
Memory of Light. Rand's body. And he was like, "That'll sell the book, baby."
He'll be like,
"Hell yeah,
you love to see it.
Hell yeah." So I just would love to have been the like Tor.com marketing manager who had to sit down with Darrell K. Sweet in my fantasy world where Darrell K. Sweet talked to the marketing manager, I don't know, and who had to be like, "Hey Darrell,
I have some notes.
I have some notes about what we put on the cover of books." Just in general.
Yeah, so the like title of this book is already sort of grim.
Yeah.
You know, A Memory of Light. And it's thematically appropriate as we get into the body of the book and sort of Rand's, spoiler, confrontation with the Dark One.
Holy shit, no way.
I know, he does the thing. Whoa. We never could have anticipated it. It's thematically appropriate, but it does feel like, okay, we're talking about a memory of light, meaning light is gone, you know, blah, 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 blah. And so having a haunting body corpse, this sort of, it does seem like they're trying to resurrect him in a freaky way.
Yeah.
Having that on the cover would have been, I think, a step too far.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it would have caused mass uproar. Instead, what we get is Michael Whalen, who wrote a blog post about making the Wheel of Memory of Light cover, and very openly admits in the second sentence not having read the Wheel of Time books. I focused on the scene provided and the characters therein, while also keeping in mind that this book was the culmination of many years of reading for devoted fans. So...
This is hilarious. I would kill to know if Darrell K. Sweet actually read The Wheel of Time, because if he didn't, then that's the funniest... If he did, actually.
Yeah.
That's the funniest bit I've ever heard, because you gotta give it to Michael Whalen.
Yeah.
He did draw a cover that is reminiscent of things that actually happened in the book.
Not Darrell K. Sweet's Fantasyland Wheel of Time.
Yeah, Rand looks like a person.
Yes.
With appropriate proportions.
Yeah.
He is kind of doing a, like, yoga lunge.
Oh.
And holding his sword in a fantastic way.
Yeah, you guys have all seen it. I'm about to try to explain the post to you, but you guys have all seen it, where his arm is up 90 degrees and he's holding the sword like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's a very awkward pose, but, you know, he is also gazing right into your soul, which is upsetting.
Two things. One, Michael Whalen notes in this blog that, like, Rand has never been the, like, singular focus of a Wheel of Time book cover, which I thought was interesting.
Interesting.
Like,
yeah, you usually have, like, the back of Perrin's jacket also.
Yeah, or just, like, something there. But he also goes through several figure drawings where he was deciding what funny sword pose to put Rand in, and I would like to share with you my favorites.
Okay.
Number 1.
Oh. Now that is giving Hot Topic.
His hair is so bad.
It's also giving stab myself in the thigh.
I know, it really, he's got like a My Chemical Romance sort of.
Yeah, like he's got that
swoop.
2008 8th grade boy hair swoop.
He also seems to be holding the sword with just kind of like 2 fingers wrapped around the hilt.
Yeah, and the other fingers are fully on the blade, which I know Kalendor isn't like meant to be used
like
as
sharp,
a sword, but
feels a little silly.
Still.
And he's in another lunge. We've also got this one, which is pretty good.
Ooh.
Actively in motion.
He's doing a little ballet move there.
Yeah. There's also many editions of The Cave.
Oh, he's got it over he's bringing it out from over his back. I thought he was holding it like this. Whee! Like doing Salt Bay with the sword.
No, and then
that's quite the action shot.
I won't show you all of these. I mean, you could look at them. They're pretty funny. This seems to be the,
yeah,
close
except
to
there's some Russian peasant women in the background there instead of...
Well, here's one of him just sort of kneeling in the darkness.
Creepy.
Which, again, is like, what do you think sells books? And then that's, okay.
There's one that I like up there where he's holding the sword in what seems to be a normal way.
Oh,
yeah, that one.
Yeah,
he's just
like,
standing there and has
out.
it out in front of him. That's what I would have gone with personally, but...
Yeah.
I ain't Darrell K. Sweet. I mean, Michael Whalen. So...
Yeah, so I agree. I think this seems to be a normal way to hold a sword, but I also don't do sword fighting in the Wheel of Time world where everything is named, like, piss your pants or something.
Try really hard not to piss your pants while you cut a flower by the leaves.
By the stem. Go piss, girl.
Go piss, girl.
Okay, that was...
Rand whipped out his best sword move. Go piss, girl.
So yeah, we do end up with Rand on the cover, front and center. I didn't even notice until looking at those sketches that there are, like, women on the back of this book. I've never seen the back of the book.
That is, spoiler alert, Nynaeve and Moiraine.
Yeah, that's what I figured, because Moiraine is in blue and Nynaeve is in yellow.
Yeah. And you love how they're wearing these fancy outfits into
battle. Nynaeve's hair is really short.
It is very short. Kalendor is made of glass, which is fun.
Yeah.
Including the hilt, which I think is especially fun. There is an eclipse happening in the background, which is also real to the book.
Yeah, so though he did not read the book, good attention to detail, Michael.
Yeah, Michael, whatever scene you were provided with, impressive. Okay. Opening the book now. This book is dedicated to Harriet, the light of Mr. Jordan's life, and Emily, the light of mine. That is Brandon Sanderson's wife, not me.
It could be dedicated to you.
Shocking. I did meet Brandon Sanderson once, and he signed a book for me, and I told him my name was Emily, and he was like, that's my wife's name. And I was like, I'm 16.
Yeah, totally appropriate thing to say to a teenage girl.
Like,
What?
okay, I'm glad we have something in common, sort of.
You strange, strange man.
We get to our final epigraph.
Hell yeah.
I said it without any hesitation at all. I know. I've been doing this for years. It's a fucking epigraph.
We're professionals
Hey,
by this point.
This is an epigraph about the breaking. And the shadow fell upon the land, and the world was riven, stone from stone. The oceans fled, and the mountains were swallowed up, and the nations were scattered to the 8 corners of the world. Who knew there were 8? The moon was as blood, and the sun was as ashes. The seas boiled, and the living envied the dead. All was shattered, and all but memory lost. And one memory above all others, of him who brought the shadow and the breaking of the world. And him they named Dragon. So, this book will A, be about the Dragon Reborn. B, be about an apocalypse. This epigraph is definitely describing a very intense apocalypse of the, you remember that movie 2012
Oh yeah.
where everything just blows up, sort of
Yeah.
that nature. And we will see if the apocalypse in this book is at all that dramatic. And finally, it is evoking the title of the book. It says, all but memory lost, and one memory above all others, of him who brought the shadow. So when I made this epigraph is like a memory of shadow. Mm-hmm. So Rand now is perhaps going to embody the light. Okay, our last prologue. It is not unusually long, nor is it unusually short. And
That both of those things somehow are bad.
yeah, it's we did read the whole prologue for this one, and I'm sorry for that, but I could not figure a way to split it. Because we're doing a structure here that is very Brandon Sanderson, which is flipping between Talmany's points of view, which are like sort of the through line here.
Right.
And between every Talmany's point of view, there's a different random point of view from a new different individual.
Yeah.
We're doing a lot of the classic Wheel of Time prologue things, checking in with completely random people who, you know, Baird here. I don't know who the fuck that's just a random
It
NPC.
took me like 4 pages of Baird's point of view to know where I was and who he was talking
Yeah,
to.
Baird's point of view does have one fatal flaw, which is that it assumes we have at all kept up on the Andoran succession.
Yeah, I was like, where the fuck are we? I thought we were the White Cloaks for a really long time, and I was like, there's no White Cloak commander named Jared, I don't think.
Who knows?
It really pissed me off when I found out it was just that guy's husband.
Yeah.
That girl's husband. That
God-
woman's husband.
God, if only. If only. Yeah, there's Baird. Then we're also checking in with some bad guys. Slayer. Moghedien. I guess technically Baird's point of view is a check-in with a bad guy if you count Jared as a very low-ranking bad guy.
I mean, his name is Jared, so...
Oh, boy, I hope we don't have any listeners named Jared.
I love you listeners named Jared, because I'm sure your name is spelled Jared, not Jarid.
Normal names.
Normal Jared.
Uh-huh. And we're getting a brief, check-in with other subplots that are going to be relevant throughout this book, most primarily the Black Tower subplot.
Yeah, boy.
So, saving Talmany's for last. We've first got Baird, who is in the army of Jared Sorand.
Yeah.
Who you probably don't remember because you're normal, is Alenia's husband. Alenia is one of the ladies who tried to do a civil war in Andor and take the throne from Elaine. And she was kind of imprisoned in another ladies' camp, and they kept being like, oh, well, your husband's out there with an army, and he's gonna come rescue you. Well, here he is with his army. No idea where he's been fucking around for the last few books. But he is still insisting on, we are going to Camelin. We're going to overthrow Elaine. It's so awkward that the Trollocs beat him to it.
Yeah.
And there has been a recent bubble of evil in which all the metal in the camp has melted, which is awkward. Boy, that was very 2013.
Awkward.
2012 of me, actually, and this book came out in 2012, so you're welcome for evoking that so strongly.
Yeah, you did a great job.
Through Baird's point of view, though, we see the soldiers en masse decide to desert and march toward the last battle. And Jared is like, what the fuck are you peasants doing? And they're like, get a clue, dummy.
They tie him to a tree.
They tie him to a tree, which is actually hilarious.
Yeah.
They're like, okay, you clearly are just going to be a real bitch about this, so here you go.
Yeah, I would love to tie my boss to a tree and quit my job.
Right? Right? Baird keeps being like, Jared's not so bad, you know?
Yeah.
He's been a fine employer, and everyone likes him okay. And I'm like, that can't be true.
No, there's no boss that...
Given the way he's behaving currently.
Yeah, there's no boss that is that way. All bosses are bastards.
The through line here is that Baird is carving... Is it carving? I don't know what he's doing. He's crafting a spearhead made of stone. You know, sort of just... The idea being that the peasants, at the very least, are accepting Armageddon and that they need to be there and now are just doing whatever it takes to get there. Baird was a fine point of view until he mentioned something about how he would have loved to have Elaine on his lap. And then I was like, knock it off.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was like, that was such an incredibly unnecessary bout of sexism.
Yeah, just such an odd addition.
Yeah.
By the way, Elaine is young and hot.
Yeah, in case you forgot.
What the fuck?
Barf.
Dude.
Barf town. Brandon, boo. 2 thumbs down.
Isam is in a mysterious village. This is going to, this is a brand new setting for us.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting.
Yeah. Isam is in a village called The Village.
I think it's called The Town.
Oh, sorry.
Not The Village by M. Night Shyamalan.
This could be the M. Night Shyamalan.
It could be the M. Night Shyamalan.
Except less quaint.
This is the sequel, The Town.
The Town. Where everyone's a fucking red-cloaked monster.
Yeah, with sharpened teeth.
Yeah, Isam is in this creepy, violent town, which seems to mostly be inhabited by those AMoL channelers who we talked about at the end of our last episode. You know, guys who went into the waste to fight the Dark One and then got turned to the Shadow. Yeah. Which Isam reminds us of here is something that you can just do to channelers.
Yeah.
If you have a circle of 13 channelers and 13 Myrddraal, wham bam baby, you just can lobotomize someone and make them evil.
Yeah, so...
Which is pretty fucked up. I do appreciate that it is coming back because it was such a major, boogeyman, I think, in the first few books. You know, we had a lot of the, I think Edwin's accepted test.
Yeah.
Evoked that. Rand was super spooked by it. A lot of people were just like, that's so scary. And then we kind of stopped talking about it, like we stopped talking about a lot of things in books 6 through 12. And so it's good that it's coming back, even as it is distinctly horrifying. And as soon as Isam mentions this, we're like, of course this is what's happening in the Black Tower.
Yeah, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It's very sad, obviously. I guess in my head I thought these AMoL guys had kind of chosen to become evil.
Probably some of them did.
That's true. You're right. It's never that black and white. But then this happened and I was like, oh,
that's super bad.
That's so bad.
That's so
I
gnarly.
know we're talking to the bad guys right now, but that's so bad that you guys would do that. That's
Yuck.
Not good.
Yuck.
Yeah, so...
Geographically speaking, the town is located near the valley of Thakandar.
Outside of Mordor.
Yeah, fucking... Okay, so there's Shale Gulch, Mount Doom.
Yeah.
And then there's the valley of Thakandar, Mordor.
Yeah.
And this is just apparently the only civilization
Yeah.
there, which makes sense. As soon as Isam is like, yeah, I'm in a town and it's right by Mordor over there.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, duh. Of course they would have, a place.
Yeah.
For people to hang out.
Yeah,
They gotta have, conference rooms there. Not to mention, where are the evil scientists making the Trollocs?
Yeah.
There's logistics happening.
It's true. There's a lot of logistics involved with taking over the world.
And someone's got to do it, and it's this town.
It's the town.
And the bad ale guys, who weren't necessarily choosing to be bad, but now they are. And some women, I don't know, and Myrddraal, and the Forsaken,
Yeah.
and like one child,
A single child.
a single child, and as far as I know, that's it.
Yeah, that's who occupies the town.
Yeah.
Isam mentions that he grew up here.
Which doesn't make sense to me, but I might not be fully remembering the Isam lore.
Me either.
Just as a quick refresher, Isam/Luke are two people merged into one. Luke is the brother of the late Andoran, heir to the throne. You know, the lady who would have been queen, but then ran off to become the Ale, Rand's mom.
Tigraine or whatever.
Tigraine, and so Morgoth took the throne instead. Luke just went out there looking for Tigraine, I think.
Maybe.
Or maybe she went looking for him, I can't remember. Isam was somehow involved in the whole fall of Malkir, and I thought he was an adult when that happened, but I guess he's like Lan's cousin, and so maybe he was a bebe.
Evil
Also
bebe.
unclear, yeah. So Isam's like, yeah, I grew up in this place and it fucking sucked. And you're like, I would feel a lot more sympathy for you if you hadn't done all the atrocities against wolves.
Yeah. Listen, Hopper died because of you.
Yeah.
Hopper died again because of you.
Hopper died twice because of you, bitch. Isam, it's interesting to have an Isam point of view. I think we get, like, you know, some very late stage answers about how the sort of mechanics of this work that seems to be sort of just a dual personality thing, where what's happening now is Isam is speaking, and he's like, yeah, and sometimes Luke is in charge.
Yeah.
But not right now, and Luke has different feelings than Isam does. Luke hates Perrin, and Isam is kind of like, meh, whatever, Perrin.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. Isam's the guy who hates wolves. Meh.
Yeah.
Anyway, Isam's been told to come to a hot meeting here with one of the Forsaken. He doesn't know which one. Moradin passes, and he's like, oh, I hope it's not that guy. It's not Moradin, though. It is a lady who we recognize perhaps as Sindane, nay, Lanfear, who's like, listen, bud, I'm hiring you to kill the Dragon Reborn. Finally get it done. And he's like, well, you guys have given me that assignment in the past, and then you change your minds halfway through, so are we for realsies this time?
Yeah.
She's like, we're for realsies this time. It's on you, bud. And he's like, okay, whatever, worm. She gives him a couple of creepy ale guys to assist. So thus starts the Isam/Luke/Slayer subplot.
Yeah.
If you're keeping track, this will give Perrin something to do.
It's nice that they think of that.
It's nice that they think of that, because otherwise Perrin would have just been fighting people with his hammer, and yeah, it would have gotten pretty boring to read.
Yeah, we could have also just not read about it. Perrin could have taken his magic hammer into, like, just taken his magic hammer onto the field, and I didn't have to see him ever again.
Yeah.
But no. He's a main character or something.
We're also, through this, tying together Lanfear and Slayer into the same sort of quasi-out-to-kill-Rand subplot.
Yeah, that I'm sure will have to do with the World of Dreams or whatever.
We'll have to do with Tel'aran'rhiod, Riyadh, we'll have to do with Perrin, which we'll get into much more later, but it is wild to have Perrin and Lanfear suddenly stuck in the same subplot at this stage.
Yeah, jeez. I guess it's time for Perrin to take a turn.
We then get an Aegeanan point of view as she and Bael Domon are entering the camp at the Fields of Marilor. They go looking for Nynaeve or Elaine, presumably just to offer their skills. It's a little unclear. Someone, our favorite warder, Sleet, my bestie.
My bestie
Sleet is like, here, Nynaeve are some weirdos. Nynaeve is super pissed to see them, because, as you'll recall, Leolwyn, Aegeanan, and Domon were supposed to drop the male Adam into the ocean, and didn't. And in fact, Aegeanan turned it over to Sarath to buy her own freedom. which wasn't so super clear to me before. I thought it was, like, taken from them. But,
I vaguely remember her giving it to them. I think it might not have been, like, a fully like, I think there might have been some, like, we got cornered or something, but I do remember her giving it to Surath.
Yeah, so Egeanin has not understood until this point that was a bad move.
Yeah.
And Nynaeve's like, it was super bad, you almost caused the world to end. And she's like, oh, yikes.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't, though, so...
Yeah, this is like a good old-fashioned back to our roots Nynaeve just yelling at somebody. So
for something that didn't actually end up happening.
Yeah. I found it very comforting.
What was the outcome of the male Adam? Semiraj beefed it.
Yeah.
Ultimately. And Rand was deeply unpleasant for a while, but then he got over it, which presumably would have happened without that whole little interlude, so...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think Nynaeve is kind of right to yell at her. Like, it sounds like Egeanin was a bit of a coward, but again, I don't remember exactly how it played out.
No, I agree. She totally deserves to be yelled at. It just doesn't have as much weight. Like, I like it when Nynaeve yells at people, or anyone yells at people, and it's like, yeah, there's for sure, there's some weight behind.
Yeah, the consequences,
and they aren't just sort of, like, theoretical. Maybe it would be interesting if Egeanin had to confront Rand himself about her big fuck-up here, but... Anyway, Nynaeve agrees to take Egeanin to Egg.
Yeah.
Which, again, is evoking one of... We're going to be talking a lot about, you know, people's visions and dreams coming to pass in this book. Edwene has a couple of times, I think, had dreams involving a Shanshan woman helping her.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Here we go, Egeanin. Then we get an Avienda point of view in the Wise One's tent, or the sweat tent. She's like, so... Listen to this, guys. Ain't this fucked up? And they're like, boy, that is fucked up. They have a long conversation about the sort of rules of time travel and divination generally.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, fine. I get it. But ultimately, they're like, this is going to come down to, according to your visions of the future, Rand is going to do something tomorrow that does not involve us. And he'll think it's a good thing. He'll think he's, you know, exacting a price from every other nation, but not the Ale, because the Ale have had his back. Mm-hmm. But really, he'll be setting us up for some sort of massive failure.
Yeah.
And culturally, to the Ale, being left out is a bad thing.
Yeah.
So Avian is like, okay, I'm gonna go sort this out, talk to him, or something.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Bear is like, I'm going to go to Riverdale myself and investigate whether, you know, we all see the same future. Sort of get some of those answers.
Yeah.
Avian is like, have you ever heard of a chick named Nakomi? And Bear's like, no. Why? And Avian is like, I don't know, because it was so odd. It was so fucking odd. Whew. Then we get an Andrel point of view as he is in some sort of like basement meeting room with Pavara and his guys.
Andrel is making a fucking saddle during this.
It's quite bizarre.
Which I don't understand.
Yeah, he should have just been knitting or something.
Yeah, I guess that is his form of knitting, is leather working.
And he's like, I'm really fucking it up big time.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, well, maybe you should take a break.
Maybe you don't need to be making a saddle.
Yeah, in the middle of talking about the Black Tower. This downfall. We're not, like, plot-wise, this isn't much farther than we were the last time we were in the Black Tower. Everyone is still kind of like, ooh, this is Breaking Bad. There's no way out. What are we gonna do? They're kind of talking like, okay, we gotta make plans to get the word out. And Andrel's kind of resistant to that. He's like, I don't want to go crying to the Dragon Reborn for help. We just need to fix it ourselves. Which I think is meant to be quite, like, noble and manly of him, but I find a little silly. It's like, I would find it more compelling, I guess, if Andrel was like, I don't trust the Dragon Reborn because he's left us to our own devices until now, so why should we believe he'll help us at all?
Yeah.
But they're kind of trying to make these plans. They have all concluded that people are getting turned toward the darkness forcibly. Pavara is all like, we should go to the Aes Sedai outside of the Black Tower and help, and Andrel's like, that won't be as much help as you think it will, because they're Aes Sedai, they're stateswomen rather than death machines like all of the Ashaman in here. So,
Yeah.
if it comes to a pitched battle,
Yeah, we'll win. The Ashaman will win.
Yeah.
I mean.
Obviously the focus of this little section is mostly on Andrel himself as a character, as a leader among men, and of his continuing mysterious past, blah, 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 blah. And on his relationship with Pavara in terms of they are both standing in as sort of archetypes of channeling man, channeling woman. Mm-hmm. Opposite ends of the spectrum. How will they come together?
Yeah.
How will they find common ground?
Two households, both alike in dignity.
Two households, both alike in dignity. And it's very obvious that Andrel and Pavara are at some point going to get along and perhaps become a fighting unit that's more powerful than the sum of its parts,
Yeah.
So it's a little annoying that it'll take us.
Yeah, it's just at this point in the series, I don't need to do the male channeler versus
Song and dance,
female
yeah.
channeler again. I also know that they're going to end up in a romantic relationship because this is Robert Jordan / Brandon Sanderson's The Wheel of Time. So it's just this whole Romeo, that dumb Romeo and Juliet joke, but it's they're being presented to us at the beginning as though they're sort of enemies to lovers, star-crossed type shit. And it's I need you to go into Mazrim Tem's creepy basement where he's keeping 13 Myrddraal and fix this problem.
Sorry, just imagining the break room
Yeah.
between the 13 Myrddraal and all the evil Ashaman.
Yeah.
So funny. Hey guys,
Hey guys, what'd you do today?
how was your weekend? Oh, Mondays, am I right?
Hey, Mondays, hey.
Yeah, enemies to lovers only functions if the, enemies aspect of that is actually some sort of compelling differences,
Yeah.
rather than just two people who are kind of mean to each other.
Yeah. And this is so off topic, but I feel enemies to lovers is a pretty common, plot in romance books in particular.
Very, very common.
Especially in the so-called romantasy genre. Mm-hmm. And not that I've read much of it because I'm so happy for everybody who does like it, but it is not a genre for me. I've never really found one that is interesting to me. But my brief forays into it really do seem to be people are considered enemies, either because one, they just don't like each other, or two, one of them is perpetuating crimes against humanity against the other one, and that's presented as a haha funny enemies to lovers.
Sort of a Kylo Ren.
Yeah. But this whole idea that people who fight are not necessarily a successfully, to me, satisfying enemies to lovers. So Andrel and Pavara just being she's such an Aes Sedai, and what has to always get the last word in. It's okay, just kiss or whatever. I'm so bored.
For real. Finally, besides Talmonese, we get a Moghedien point of view as she meets with the other surviving Forsaken minus Sindane, who isn't there for some reason. I guess this is the same moment as her meeting with,
Yeah.
I don't know, double booked or something.
Yeah.
But Moradin is there. The update on Moghedien is that she now possesses her own little disembodied soul in a necklace, whatever's going on there.
Yeah.
She's obviously deeply traumatized from all the torture. Demandred shows up and is being super weird. He just keeps dropping hints that he's got something big in the works. And we're that's so great.
Demandred would kill on Instagram, by the way, just constantly being some big's coming.
Oh, yeah.
Some big's coming.
Now wait, guys.
When
I get up to 100,000 followers.
Yeah.
Demandred is also showing this sort of manic obsession with, I want to personally kill the Dragon Reborn.
Yeah.
Which you really wish someone would be I don't know how to tell you this, Demandred, but the Dragon Reborn is going to be talking to the Dark One. He's sort of got a schedule. Mm-hmm. So we're probably going to let Daddy Dark One be the one to kill him.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how logistically you can also be there and murder him.
Mm-hmm. Demandred is sort of a final girl of the Forsaken.
Yeah.
As the only one who has survived without being horrendously tortured
Yeah.
and or killed and then resurrected, a la Moradin and Sindane.
Yeah.
And it's sort of clear that the narrative doesn't really know what to do with him at this point.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of personality. They're like, oh, Demandred is suddenly carrying a ton of weight as one of the big bats. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't actually have much of a personality. He's just been sort of this threatening guy in the background. Mm-hmm. So we're just going to have to give him the personality that, like, he's out to kill Rand.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, that's sort of what all the Forsaken have going on for them.
Yeah, it is really frustrating because in this scene we get the final confirmation that, like, I know everyone
Demandred is not Mazrim Tem.
Everyone loves to tell me that this was, like, debunked in Lord of Chaos or whatever, and I just, like, don't believe you. If it's not that obvious to every reader on screen, then it is not perhaps canonical. But in this, we get, like, a final, very obvious canonical reveal that Demandred is not Mazrim Tem.
Because they're in the same room together.
They're in the same room together, and they're also like, Mazrim Tem's been promoted. He's done such a good job as a middle manager with his 13 Myrddraal in his creepy basement.
He's even one of the Forsaken, and now he gets a cool, like, celebrity single name.
Yeah.
A la all the Forsaken.
Yeah.
Now, instead of Mazrim Tem, he's Myrddraal.
Yeah. Which is his dumb fucking cult title.
Yeah.
So,
It's basically leader.
yeah.
Or something. Which is like, oh, then it's kind of awkward that you're the lowest ranking of the Forsaken.
Really embarrassing.
Should have been follower, am I right?
Anyway, Mazrim Tem's been promoted because he's done such a good job.
Because he's daddy's special boy.
He's daddy's special boy.
Which, like, to be fair, yeah, he has done a good job. As opposed to Samael, Robin.
I know, this happened
All
and
the
I was
others.
like,
You know, right?
Yeah.
He did deserve that promotion.
he at least has done something actually bad.
Yeah, this is a merit-based promotion. For sure.
Like, to just, anyway, we don't need to laud. We don't need to get him up on his, gold medal podium.
He'll do that himself.
He'll do that
Believe
himself.
us.
Yeah, but when we get this sort of canonical, and it's so stupid too, because Demandred walks into the room and they're like, he's got a hooked nose and dark hair, which are other synonyms that have been used to describe Mazrim Tem in the past in some form or another. So then you're like, finally the reveal, and then it's like, no, fuck you, Mazrim Tem is also here. Once we made that reveal, or once Robert Jordan decided to go away from that plot, like, Demandred was nothing. And I know we've made that argument before, but it is really coming to a head at this final book where it's like, oh yeah, Demandred is the only Forsaken we haven't really interacted with, so he better do something huge in the final book, but he has no personality and we haven't set up any plans for him, and Mazrim Tem is a better big bad at this point.
Yeah, Demandred will do something big in this book, but it's totally unforeshadowed, totally out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And so, at least in retrospect, pretty unsatisfying. I think my whole argument with Demandred, and we'll get into this later, is that Demandred, instead of focusing his vendetta on Rand, should have been functioning as an antagonist in parallel to Matt. In terms of Demandred's role in the last battle, which will be as sort of a general figure leading the forces, and Matt will be doing the same thing on the other side. In the same way that Mazrim Tem is going to function as a parallel to Egg, and Lanfear randomly is going to be a parallel to Perrin.
Yeah.
And Moradin to Rand, vice versa.
Right.
Yeah, but that's, what we could have had, but lost. Finally, we get the reveal that Grendel has, like everyone else, been killed and resurrected in a new body, and the big joke is that she's in an ugly body.
Yeah.
There are, of course, some anti-Semitic undertones here with describing Grendel as having quote-unquote classically ugly features,
Yeah.
and one of them is like a hooked nose.
Yeah.
And it's like, shut up.
Yeah, they do use that twice in the same chapter, don't they?
Yeah.
A hooked nose. Interesting.
Yeah.
Bad.
Lots of evil
Bad
people have hooked
is
noses.
what I will say.
Isn't that
Bad.
interesting?
Very anti-Semitic.
This is the worst thing that could have happened to Grendel, is that now she's ugly. And I don't even really want to talk about that because it's so fucking misogynistic and stupid.
Moghedien, laughs out loud in her face. I was
Which,
like,
honestly...
yeah, I mean, kind of iconic.
Moghedien's like... Moghedion's a little unhinged.
Yeah, Moghedien needs a long vacation and some therapy.
Moghedien needs to pound some Xanax.
Yeah.
Moradin does, sort of send them to their battle stations, including, he's like, Moghedien, I'm going to have you be checking in on an army. And we don't know what that is yet, but keep that on the back burner. Okay, Talmanes.
Here we go.
Like we said, we intersect Talmanes' points of view with other points of view, and it's just Talmanes and the fall of Caemlyn. Talmanes and the Band of the Red Hand, the forces he has left to him, considering some of them have been taken to Cairhien. They go to this city, which is super on fire, and go initially towards the palace, because they're like, the palace isn't on fire, surely some people are defending there. And then they go in search of the cannons. Along the way, they convince some mercenaries to hold one of the gates so that there is an exit route, both for civilians and for them when they leave. They do go to the palace and find that good old Gaibon has been holding there, and initially is like, I don't want to leave because the queen will send messengers here. Mm-hmm. And we gotta tell her what's going on. And it's like, okay, well, the queen's gonna figure it out pretty quick when all the messengers die.
Yeah.
So maybe don't worry about it. And finally, they go to the warehouse where the dragons are being kept and find Aludra has managed to keep the dragons safe and out of the hands of the shadow, along with sort of keeping some civilians safe. Mm-hmm. And it ends with them sort of cornered against a wall and using the cannons to blow up the wall so they can escape the city.
Yeah.
As it is burning. It's Talmanes' point of view throughout. Talmanes is initially fine, obviously, but in his very second point of view, we find out that he has taken a wound while killing a Myrddraal. Here's another threat that has not been in play in many, many books. Mm-hmm. But Myrddraal's blades, like the classic, Nazgul blades, are poisonous, so Talmanes throughout this is slowly dying.
Yeah.
In a very manly way,
Yeah, refusing to give in to the pain.
Refusing to give in to the pain, he just keeps going despite it, and, he refuses mercy killing, etc., etc. He even kills another Myrddraal. So badass while he's dying of his first Myrddraal wound.
Yeah.
It's pretty silly, It's Talmanes doesn't read like Talmanes. Talmanes reads like any Brandon Sanderson character. Just sort of that cardboard cutout of a character.
Yeah.
My main beef with it is Talmanes' voice and sort of this overarching portrayal of, lionized masculinity.
Yeah.
We're seeing a heroic ideal in Talmanes' point of view, as Talmanes himself, that is embodied also by people like Lan and Rand in terms of, just don't give in to the pain, just overcome your body's physical weakness to do cool things and keep your head on your shoulders and stay cool and think through all the problems and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Sort of valorous in battle type men. And, that's very much setting the tone for what the last battle is evoking in the very fact that it is called the last battle.
Yeah.
There's going to be battlefields. There's going to be men fighting. The idea of accomplishment or sort of heroic deeds in the last battle is going to be determined by people's suffering proportionate to their victories, and that is sort of what is epic to us, or is supposed to be. And I don't think I want to dive too deep into that yet. I think that's something we can come back to as a theme, but that is what is happening here with Talmanes.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely talk more about it, but this can be kind of our first mile marker along the path of this theme as we hike through it. I also think it's very indicative of that theme that it is Talmanes who dies in the first point of view. everyone I've talked to has been like one of their fan favorite little side characters, you know, this weird little French dude who's like one of Matt's second in command's best friends, been such a kind of varying stick in the mud / very smart military guy, and everyone I know who's read the series seems to really like him, so presumably a fan favorite who is his death is of course supposed to be shocking and upsetting the way fan favorite deaths are, but it is also really leaning into the idea that all of our favorite characters, all of our good guys are going to have to embody this attitude in order to get to the end, and we're seeing that on the ground level with like a secondary character, so we need to like expect that to an even higher degree out of our main characters. So
that's the prologue of A Memory of Light.
Damn.
It is definitely meant to grab you by the seat of your pants and yeet you into the action.
Yeah.
It's very action-packed, you know. This is obviously a very Brandon Sanderson style, but it is also very much trying to get you, like, reading in terms of we're not having a bunch of boring talking scenes back-to-back the way prologues traditionally happen. We're having fights interspersed throughout.
Yeah.
To make sure that you are just gripped.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before with Brendan. I don't love the, like, intercutting. Really hit my T's on that one. The intercutting for no reason. I mean, the reason here is pacing, exactly like Emily said. Like, though they are not the most boring prologue scenes we've had, like, the other ones, the non-Talmanese scenes, are interesting and interesting things are happening. They're still just, like, sitting around talking sort of scenes. So the action is supposed to build you up, leaving you on a cliffhanger. You read the talking, and then it happens again and again. And it's just a structure that feels manipulative because it feels like it's being used because there's nothing else of interest in the prologue. That's how I felt.
Yeah, it feels a little infantilizing because you're like, if I'm at book 14 of The Wheel of Time and I'm not at least somewhat gripped by the boring talking scenes, then I'm probably the wrong reader for this.
Like, if I can't sit through The Town as a Wheel of Time reader and be interested in what's happening, or Aviendha talking to the wise ones and at least be vaguely interested about how they're going to respond, why have I read 13 other books?
Yeah, we're doing things that the prologue should do in this. Establishing new threats, stuff like, and, you know, wrapping up sort of hanging plot points.
Yeah.
So the idea that the pacing would be a total mess without Talmane's points of view is a little absurd.
Yeah. Like, as we talk about in many, like, I think the talking scenes could have been a very effective prologue, and then we could have jumped into Talmane's as chapter 1, or vice versa, have Talmane's as the prologue or whatever, just this sort of, like, stop, go, stop, go, stop, go.
Yeah, I think Talmane's would have functioned as one of the points of view, but I honestly think we could have had him, you know, take one of those late stage scenes where he's actively dying and where Caemlyn's burning and, you know, he's trying to get out.
Yeah.
That's a good scene to pick up from the cliffhanger we left him on.
Yeah, in the last book where he was rushing towards the city. Yeah, I don't need this sort of agonizing blow by blow slow death of one of my favorite side characters.
Yeah, for sure.
Where he's just turning weird shades of black and oozing out of his face and making really bad jokes.
So bad.
As though that is his primary character trait.
So odd.
His bad jokes.
They're like, he's funny, get it? And it's only when he's dying that he can let loose his humor. And I'm like, no. I don't think that's who he is.
Also, not every character needs to be funny in order to be a good character. And I just,
that is a real Brandon Sanderson mainstay, is if they don't have jokes,
they're fucking useless.
They must be evil if they don't have jokes.
If only Mazrimtem could crack a joke every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, this whole scene would have been 10 times more bearable if Talmanes was just himself throughout.
Right, yeah.
Sort of stoic and irritated by everything.
Yeah.
Instead of cracking jokes and being a badass.
Being man.
Yeah.
Dripping.
So that's the prologue, you guys. Yeehaw.
We did it.
The length of this episode is probably indicative of how long episodes are going to be throughout A Memory of Light, but, you know, that it is how it is.
Lots to talk about. It's the final book.
Lots to talk about, lots of things to wrap up. But we'll be back next time with chapters, I believe, 1 and 2, so look forward to that. And until then, thank you for listening.
Yeah.
For 14 books, if not, 13 books and 13 seasons. Since we did skip a good old Path of Daggers.
And did we miss anything?
Nope.
I don't think so.
We sure didn't. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Glenna McKenzie, as always, for our theme song. Thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media.
Yes.
Anything to add?
No.
Do you have a sign-off?
Oh. we were in Phoenix last weekend with a bunch of Emily's high school friends, and we were all sitting in the backyard one night, like waiting for our dinner reservation, like telling like stories from our childhood and like weird things that our parents did. And we're all like in our 30s, you know, so like people were drinking and like swearing, and in the other yard there was a bunch of children. There were a bunch of children. And I don't remember what happened, but somebody was like, we're like in a neighborhood, maybe we shouldn't be so, I don't know, inappropriate or whatever.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I can't remember what they said, but Emily's friend Kat, what did they say? Oh my gosh.
They were basically like, fuck them kids.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like very loudly standing next to the fence, like, fuck those kids. And then like immediately a
child like screamed, not in pain or fear, but just sort of, you know, the way kids playing scream. It didn't seem to be a reaction to what was said, but it was like so loud and so blatant that we all just like panicked, like teens whose mom comes into the room when they're watching an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
We all scrambled inside.
It was so funny. It was, first of all, the timing of just what Kat said and the child, like, it was like instantaneous.
Yeah, it was so good.
So funny. And then the just like coordinated scramble inside. Everyone was grabbing snacks.
So many snacks, giggling.
Yeah, it was
so funny.
really funny.
Yeah, we could be telling stories from Phoenix for a long time.
Yeah, it was one of the funniest moments. And we all went inside and were just like crying.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, sorry, child.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, everyone. Hope you have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.